In the last video, we looked at how to add drums to a BR1600 project using the built-in drum machine. As I mentioned in the video, there are a number of different ways that you can do this. In this video, we'll look at another one of those options and see how we can do it using audio samples or loop phrases. Loop phrases are the BR1600's method of being able to use audio samples in an arrangement. They are generally 1 or 2 measures in length, but can be up to 30 minutes long. The BR1600 has a dedicated loop phrase track on track 1112, and when used in conjunction with a rhythm arrangement, it allows you to sequence loops, repeating them as needed within an arrangement. Loops can either be created using portions of recorded audio tracks or by importing data. This can be either using your own data or commercially available samples. You can even use a virtual instrument like EZdrummer, but instead of syncing to a DAW using MIDI, you can save the samples directly to a CD and import them into the BR1600. The BR1600 can store up to 400 user loop phrases for general use and an additional 50 song-specific loops. The use of loops is not limited to just drums though, and can be created from any audio data. The BR1600 originally shipped with a CD of drum samples, which were also pre-installed from the factory. The same CD was also shipped with the BR1200 and another version sold with the BR1180. If the BR1600 is initialized at any time, then all the loop phrases are deleted. These can be loaded back from either a data backup or directly from CD. Loop phrases function in a similar manner to the drums, with track 1112 being used as a dedicated loop track. This is enabled either when you create a new song by selecting Use Loops, or by pressing the track type select button and selecting the loop phrase option. Once loop phrases are selected, they are enabled using the track 1112 arm button. With the button unlit, no loops will play. When the button is flashing, loops will sound when in play and record mode. As with the drums, the loops can be used in either pattern mode or arrangement mode. In pattern mode, with the arrangement light off, press the Edit button. Move the cursor to highlight the loop phrase bank. There are 8 banks available from A to H, which you can select using the time value wheel. The 50 additional loops specific to the current song are prefixed S for song. Move the cursor to highlight the loop phrase number and use the time value wheel to choose. You can also use value dial 2 to make larger jumps through the bank of loops. Assuming you have some loops installed, pressing play will start the selected loop and it will play on repeat until you press stop. You can switch between the loops as they play. You can use this method to choose a single loop instead of using the metronome. This gives you a more realistic rhythm to play along to and is a great way to start sketching out a song. Even though each drum, bass and loop phrase pattern has its own time signature, they will all be modified to conform to the current time signature set in pattern mode. This is known as the universal beat setting. This allows for patterns with different time signatures across the drums, bass and loops to be played together. I covered this in the previous video, so you can refer back to that for more information, and I'll leave a link in the description. Highlight the tempo field and use the time value wheel to adjust the tempo. You can also use the tap tempo button. Tap the button 4 times or more to set the tempo. Use value dial 1 to make larger jumps. The tempo can be set anywhere from 25 to 250 BPM, but because loops are audio samples, they're designed to be played within a specific range of the original tempo. Ideally, the closer to the original tempo, the better, and the higher the sound quality will be. Loops can be time stretched to match the current project and can be adjusted to be within a range of 75 to 150% of the original tempo. For example, a loop with a tempo of 100 BPM can be slowed down to a minimum of 75 or sped up to a maximum of 150 BPM. If you choose a tempo outside of this range, then the sample will play back at either the upper or lower limit, but will be out of sync with the project tempo. If you want to know the original tempo of a loop, press the F2 Edit button from the Pattern Edit screen. A single loop phrase can be anywhere from half a second to 30 minutes in length. You can use the audio from any recorded track to create a loop. You first need to define the start and end point. This can be as simple as bar locations or measures, or you can use markers. Press the loop phrase import button and scroll to the by track option. Highlight and press enter or press F2. Choose the track you want to use to create the loop and set the save location. Bank A to H are available to use on any future song, while Bank S is for the current song only. Any existing loop already in the save location will be overwritten. Set the start and end points using the display format button to switch between measures, time, or markers. Press F4 Go to create the loop. Loops can also be created using audio imported from a data CD. CDs must be formatted as ISO Level 2 Mode 1, which is the standard data format that the BR1600 uses for all data imports. The audio must be either WAV or AIFF, 8 or 16-bit, and 44.1 kHz. It must be no shorter than half a second and no longer than 30 minutes. If you want to import from a standard audio CD, you'll need to import it as an audio track first and then use the by track option to create the loop. Insert a data CD into the CD drive. Once the indicator stops flashing, press the loop phrase import button and F1 import. The import screen will display a list of all the WAV files contained on the CD. If the files are in folders, highlight the folder and press enter to see the contents. You can toggle between WAV and AIFF files by pressing the F1 type button. Highlight the file to import and press F2 preview to hear the sample. Cursor to the right section of the screen and choose a destination location for the loop. Press F4 Go to create the loop. To read all the files in at once, use the All button. Move the cursor to the right to select a location bank and press F4 Go to read all the samples into the selected bank. They will be written into the bank starting from position 1 with a maximum of 50 files read at any one time, even if more are selected. Any files existing in the destination banks will be overwritten. When a loop phrase is created, the number of measures is estimated automatically such that the tempo is as close to 120 BPM as possible. This means that if your loop is not a full measure or the tempo is faster or slower than 120 BPM, then the tempo and measure information could be incorrect. You can change this by using the F2 Edit button from the phrase import screen. From here, you can trim the start and end point of the loop, as well as change the beat and measure settings. Any adjustments made here are non-destructive and can always be reversed. Adjusting one setting will automatically adjust the corresponding settings to suit, so that the loop itself will still play for the same amount of time. You cannot adjust any setting that would cause the tempo to go below 25 BPM or above 250 BPM, or for the loop to be shorter than half a second or 22,064 samples. As with the built-in drum machine, you can use arrangement mode to sequence various loops together in a specific order to create a track. To create an arrangement, press the arrangement button so it's lit, and then the edit button. This takes you to the arrangement edit screen. Move the cursor to the arrangement number and use the time value wheel to select one. By default, all user and song arrangements are blank, and preset arrangements only contain drums and bass. You can either load a preset and add loops to it, or create a new arrangement from scratch. When using a preset, it will need to be saved to either a user or song location once it's edited, as you cannot save over a preset arrangement. If the song structure is unique, save it to a song location. Otherwise, saving to a user location will make it available for use on any new song. The track 1112 arm button works the same way as in pattern mode. When unlit, loops won't sound at all, even when you press play. When flashing, the loops sound in play and record mode. Push the track arm button until it flashes and make sure the track 1112 fader is raised to unity. Press 0 to return to the start of the arrangement if it's not already. You can tell by looking at the current location at the top of the screen. Press the F2 loop phrase button to go to the loop assembly screen. Press the measure where you want the first loop to start. Highlight the loop bank and number and choose the first loop. It's inserted with a length of 1 bar, even if it's a multi-measure loop. You can highlight length and use the time value wheel to increase it as needed. Increasing it past the full length of the loop will cause it to repeat again from the start. The change in length is reflected in the graphic on the screen. Highlight measure and use the time value wheel or the fast forward button to move the current location, shown with a small triangle, to the location where you want the next loop to start. Highlight the loop number and select a new loop. Continue adding loops until the arrangement is done. Press play at any time to hear the recorded tracks played along with the arrangement, and make any adjustments before you save the arrangement. The volume option allows you to reduce the level of the loops if they are louder than the rest of the arrangement. They can be adjusted from 0 to 100, the default being 100. Any adjustments you make must be done while the recorder is in stop mode. Position only relates to loops that are less than 1 bar long. With position at the default setting of top, the beginning of the loop is aligned with the start of the measure. If set to bottom, then the end of the loop is aligned with the end of the measure. Tempo match determines whether a loop is stretched to match the current project tempo or not, and is limited to within 75 to 150% of the original tempo. It's set to on by default. To modify a loop arrangement, move the current location over the loop you want to edit. Change the loop by highlighting either the name or loop number and using the time value wheel. Highlight the length field to adjust how many bars the loop plays for. Increasing the length will push all the following patterns out to allow for it. Reducing the number has the opposite effect, and all the following patterns close in to fill the gap. To be able to reduce a multi-measure pattern down to a single measure, you must be positioned at the start of the first measure. You can use F1 insert to add a loop partway through an arrangement. Move the current location to where the loop is to be inserted and press F1. A single measure is inserted and all the following loops are pushed out by one measure to suit. Highlight either the loop name or number and use the time value wheel to set the new loop. When inserting a new loop partway through another, the loop will be split so that the first section of the loop is trimmed at the point where the new loop is inserted, and then plays from the start again after the split point. If you insert a loop between two loops, even if there are empty measures between them, the loops following will still be shifted out by the length of the new loop. Delete the same number of blank measures as the inserted loop to reset the following loops back to their original positions. F2 delete will remove the currently selected loop and close the gap with the loops that follow. F3 erase will remove the currently selected loop but leave empty measures where the loop was. F4 clear all will remove all the loops currently used in the arrangement. Press exit when you're done and go back to the arrangement screen. Press F1 edit to name and save the arrangement. You can also use F2 and F3 to copy and delete arrangements. For more complex arrangements, you can use a tempo and beat map to vary the tempo and time signature during a song. We covered this in the drum machine video, so you can refer back to that by following the link in the description. Let's look again at the demo song we used in the drum machine video and add some loops to the song arrangement. In arrangement mode, press the edit button. We'll select song arrangement 1, which was the arrangement we used previously. This was the structure of the drums and the patterns we used. We can see that the time signature for the song is 4/4 and the tempo is 126 BPM. Let's find some suitable loops to use, ideally with a tempo around 126 BPM, so that we can maintain the best audio quality. From the BR1600 discrete drum samples installed on the machine, we can see that high step and straight up are close, so we'll use those for the demo. Press the F2 loop button to go into the loop assembly screen and press 0 to go to the start of the song. From the layout of the structure, we can see the first pattern starts on bar 3, so we can use either the fast forward button or highlight measure and use the time value wheel to advance to bar 3. This is the intro loop D14. The original tempo for this loop is 130 BPM, but it will be time stretched along with all the other loops we add to match the current project tempo. Press fast forward to go to bar 4 where it changes to a verse. Roll the time value wheel forward and the loop number from the adjacent measure will be displayed. We'll change it to the verse loop C32. The verse is 8 bars long, so we'll highlight length and extend it to 8 bars. Remember that you can press play at any time to hear the audio tracks being played along with the arrangement. Fast forward to the end of the verse at bar 12. For the bridge, we'll use the bridge loop C25. We'll leave an empty measure at bar 20 and add a fill to the next bar. As we're adjacent to an empty measure, the loop number defaults back to A1. Let's add loop D11. The next bar is the start of verse 2 and goes for 8 bars. Followed by an 8-bar bridge at bar 30. The chorus starts at bar 38 and I'll use loop C29. We'll extend that for 16 bars. Continue adding loops until the rest of the song is complete.
My fear is lost and I can't feel. Eyes fade to black. This time it's real. Can't break the line that pulls me in. Can't take the pain of my past sins. I can't take it anymore. I'm broken. My fear is lost and I can't feel. Eyes fade to black. This time it's real. Can't break the line that pulls me in. Can't take the pain of my past sins. I can't take it anymore. I'm broken.
Instead of using the standard way of inputting the loops that we've just covered, we can streamline the process by assigning loops to the track buttons. These assignments are saved with and are specific to each song. Press the loop phrase import button and select button assign. Move the cursor to each track button in turn and use the time value wheel to set the bank and loop to be assigned. You can use F2 preview or the assign track button to test. Press the button a second time to stop playback. Save the song to keep all the loop phrase assignments. With the loops now assigned, inputting them into an arrangement is very easy. press the F2 loop button to go into the loop assembly screen and 0 to go back to the start of the song. When adding loops with the track buttons, they are inserted for the full length of the loop as opposed to just a single measure when using the standard method. Now you can simply press the track buttons that correspond to the loops to add them to the arrangement. You can either press the track buttons in sequence and adjust the lengths after, or press them one at a time and edit the lengths as you go. For measures longer than the loop, you can either press the track button multiple times or use the length setting in the arrangement. When loops are being time stretched to match the tempo of an arrangement, the rate at which the hard drive needs to be read increases. This can sometimes lead to a drive busy error message. This mostly occurs when an arrangement is set to a tempo which is considerably faster than the original loops, or where short loop phrases are played back repeatedly. In such cases, you can use the option to copy the entire loop arrangement to an audio track and reduce the load on the hard drive. Press the loop phrase import button and select the 2-track option, or press F3. Select a destination track. Unlike with standard audio tracks, the loop track can be recorded back to the same track 11 and 12 if you wish. The start and end points are set to the full length of the arrangement by default, so press F4 Go to copy the arrangement to the selected track. The other option for using loops that have a different tempo to the project is to modify the tempos of all the loops used. When a user or song arrangement has loop phrases, you have the option to modify all of the tempos in one go. From the loop phrase import screen, select Arrangement Modify. Move the cursor to Arrangement and select the user or song arrangement you want to modify. Cursor to New BPM and select a new tempo. The change in tempo is limited to between 75 and 150% of the original tempo or tempos. If the desired tempo cannot be achieved, then 3 dashes are shown in the BPM setting. If all the tempos in the arrangement are at 100 BPM, then the allowable range for the new BPM can be set between 75 and 150. If the tempos within the arrangement are 100, 120 and 140 BPM, then the allowable range for the new tempo will be 75% of the fastest tempo, which is 105, and 150% of the slowest tempo, which is 150. If the tempos within the arrangement are 50, 100 and 200 BPM, then the difference between the fastest and slowest tempos is more than double, so no tempo adjustment is possible. If you modify loop tempos using this feature, the loops are written back to their original locations, overwriting the existing ones. This procedure cannot be undone and there is no way to recover the original loops, so use with caution. Let's have a look at an example of using loops created from audio other than drums. For this, we'll use an arpeggiated guitar as an example. We'll make a loop from the guitar in the first bridge and then repeat it in the 3 other bridge sections of the song. As we've already used the loop track for the drums, we need to convert it to an audio track so we can reuse the loops for something else. Press the loop phrase import button and select the 2-track option or press F3. For the destination track, we'll use the drum track 1516, virtual track 2. The start and end points default to the full length of the arrangement, so we can just press F4 Go to copy the whole arrangement to the track. Next, we need to identify the start and end of the audio to create a new loop from. You can use either bar locations, timestamps, or markers. As the demo song already has markers set, let's use marker search to go to the bridge. We can hear that the arpeggiated guitar starts at this point, so we can use this marker as the beginning of our loop. Unless the loop is less than 1 full measure, its start and finish points must be located at the start and end of a measure. Listening to the guitar, we can hear that it's 2 4-bar loops with a sustained ending. it fades out by the start of bar 21, making it 9 bars long. Press the loop phrase import button and select the by track option or press F2. From track, we'll use guitar track 7/8 V track 1 and we'll copy it to the empty loop location H1. Let's use the first bridge marker for the start point. As we don't have a marker for the end of the loop, if we switch the display to bars, it will default to the end of the song. Instead, if we go back to the markers and choose a marker that is close first, it will save us having to scroll all the way back from the end of the song. As we are making a 9-bar loop, we'll set the end to the start of bar 21. Press F4 Go to create the loop. Let's check the loop we've created by going into F2 Edit. We can see that the BR1600 has assumed an 8-bar loop instead of 9 and has set the tempo to 112 BPM to suit the 8 bars. This has no effect on the audio if you preview it and is only relevant when it's being played using a song tempo. We can fix this by correcting the measure count, highlight measures and change it from 8 to 9. The tempo now updates to being the correct 126 BPM. Press F4 Go to save the changes. While we are in the loop import section, let's also assign our loop to a track button. Press F3 button assign and we'll add it after the ones we did earlier to button 8. We'll start a new arrangement, song 4, and set the tempo to 126 to match the project. Starting a new arrangement will allow us to keep the old drum arrangement so we can go back and edit it at any time if we need to. You have up to 10 song arrangements available, so you could create most of the instrumentation in a song just using loops if you wanted, while still retaining the ability to edit any of the loop tracks afterwards. It's a very powerful feature. As the arrangement screen doesn't display marker names, you can search through them on the home screen instead, and then switch back to the arrangement screen after, as it will still retain the current song position. Let's go to the first bridge, and then switch to our new arrangement. Press F2 loop phrase to go to the assembly screen, and move the cursor to the loop number to add H1. It defaults to a single bar, cursor to length and change to 9 bars. Exit back to the main screen and use the marker search to go to the next bridge at bar 30. Back in the rhythm edit screen and the loop assembly screen, highlight the loop number and add H1 again. Set the length to 9 bars. Exit back to the main screen and move to the next bridge at bar 54. Press the rhythm edit button and F2 loop phrase. Back on the home screen, we can move to the final bridge at bar 72. This time we'll use the track button to add the loop. Our loop is assigned to track 8, so we just need to press it once and the full 9-bar loop is inserted. We're also moved forward to the end of the loop, ready to add another if we need to. Save the arrangement from the edit screen to keep the changes. Now we can listen to the loops in the context of the song.
Eyes fade to black. This time it's real. Can't break the line that pulls me in. Can't take the pain of my past sins. I can't take it anymore. I'm broken. Here I lay cold in pools of sweat. My life is drowning in regrets. I can't take it anymore. I'm broken.
I hope this basic overview has given you a hint as to how powerful the loop phrase feature can be. I don't think it's something that is widely used by BR1600 owners. Hopefully this might inspire some of you into giving it a try. Thanks for watching. See you next time.